Maciej Symonowicz, negotiations, vocabulary. To agree with somebody. To be in agreement with somebody. We say to agree with somebody. For instance, I couldn't agree more, or I definitely agree with her about this point, or I agree that this was a big mistake. To agree with somebody means to have the same opinion. The opposite is to disagree with somebody. To agree something, or to agree on something, it means to decide something together, to make a decision about something, and have agreement about something. To agree something means that everyone involved has made a decision together. So, for example, we can say, we couldn't agree on the date of the delivery. We can also use this expression with the word to agree to something, which means to accept someone's demand or proposal. They are not willing to agree to our proposal, or we say, yes, I definitely agree, or I will never agree to such high demands. Agreement. This very common word means a situation when people have the same opinions or views or make a decision together. We can ask, for example, so are we in agreement, or do we have agreement? Here we do not mean a document, we mean a state, a situation in which people see eye to eye. The opposite is disagreement. The word also means a promise, a document. In this sense, it is a countable noun. We say an agreement, to sign an agreement, to reach an agreement, or more formally and officially, to conclude an agreement. To argue in favour of. To state arguments which support something. A person can also say something in favour of something or somebody, which means that they support it. For example, I am in favour of this proposal. This situation is in our favour, or the other party to the negotiations argued in favour of bigger discounts. To argue against. If you are against something or someone, you argue against them. You mention arguments against something. We can say, they strongly argued against this solution, saying it was too expensive. We can argue in favour or against somebody or something. To argue with somebody means to have an argument or disagreement with somebody, to exchange different opposing opinions. Sometimes when emotions are high and people are angry or impatient. For example, I don't want to argue with you about this. Let's just compromise, to argue over something or about something with someone. To accept something means to agree to do something, to say something is true or okay or acceptable. For example, yes, we can accept a higher price in exchange for faster delivery. We also say, for instance, this is not acceptable, or this is unacceptable for us. Acceptable, unacceptable. This one is easy. Something can be acceptable or unacceptable for you. If it is acceptable for you, you can accept it. It's good enough. For example, yes, it's acceptable. It might be difficult for us to do, but we will try. The opposite is unacceptable. To ask for something means to demand, to make a request for something. We can say, before you ask for a discount, please do your calculations properly. Or, all we ask is for a little more time. Bargain with somebody over something. To haggle with somebody over something. This verb means to try to convince the other side to accept your demands or to give you more than they are willing to. For example, this is an excellent price, but it's still too high. Let's haggle a bit more. We bargained with them for 7 hours about this point. Richard Branson, the famous British businessman, often says, haggle, everything is negotiable. Bargaining power. This is simply power somebody has which can be used in bargaining, haggling. The more you have it, the stronger your negotiating position is. The more you can achieve in a negotiation for yourself. For example, we will have to use all of our bargaining power to make them agree on this issue. Bargaining chip. It is something you can use during bargaining, during negotiating something that you can give to the other side because you are prepared to lose it. In exchange, you will get something you want and care about. A bargaining chip is something that helps you with bargaining, with haggling. Something valuable for the other side that you are willing to give up to give them. For example, let's use it as a bargaining chip. We can offer them this product as an extra. It has cost us very little work, but they might find it very useful. In return, they should order our main product in larger quantities. To compromise. To agree to have less than you would like because the other side also has their expectations, which may conflict with your expectations. So, by compromising, you may achieve, for instance, 70% of what you wished, but thanks to that, be able to make the negotiations a success. If you don't compromise on something, very often the other party will not compromise either, and the negotiations will fail completely, and no one will be happy. A compromise. Compromise is also a noun. So we can say to have a compromise, to achieve a compromise. This was a very necessary compromise. A concession. To make a concession. It is something that you are prepared to give up during negotiations. When you make a concession or make concessions, you are ready to accept less than you wanted or give the other side more than you wanted. So, in negotiating prices, a lower price from a seller may be an important concession to make. We say to make a concession or to make concessions. Contentious. If something is contentious, it is the cause of arguments or disagreements. Contentious issues are likely to cause conflicts or disputes. People argue or disagree or haggle over contentious matters. For instance, we agreed on all the major terms of the agreement except for the price. The issue of price was more contentious than we expected. To convince someone. To say something that makes the other person agree with you or see and understand your arguments. For instance, it will be hard to convince them that we had nothing to do with it, or we must try to convince her that better materials will mean better quality and higher profits. Or I don't know, I am still not convinced. I am sure I will be able to convince you of the advantages of this. She tried to convince us that this was a good offer. A deal is an arrangement or an agreement, especially in business. We say to make a deal or to do a deal. For instance, the union and management have finally made a deal. Or I don't remember exactly the terms of that deal. It was a very long time ago. Or we got a good deal from the other side. Let's make a deal. Or so, we have a deal. Let's sign the documents and shake hands. To negotiate. To try to agree something through discussions, exchanging proposals. We say to conduct negotiations, to hold negotiations, or the negotiations have broken down, that is failed. We can say we are currently negotiating a major deal, or we need to negotiate better terms. A person involved in negotiations is called a negotiator. We say to conduct negotiations, to start negotiations, or to be involved in negotiations. To settle for, to accept less than you expected. An old saying goes, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and settle for something in between. You can say, I will not settle for that. It is unacceptable. Or we asked for $20,000 but had to settle for 10% less. We asked you for a full analysis and your report is simply not good enough, so we are not willing to settle for it. Do it again. To see eye to eye with somebody means to agree with somebody, to have the same opinion as somebody else. Me and my business partner always see eye to eye on major issues. My wife and I didn't see eye to eye on most things and had to get divorced. If we can't see eye to eye on this matter, I am afraid the negotiations are over. To exchange, to give something in return for something else. You can exchange opinions with somebody. You can exchange concessions or favours. This word is also a noun, so we can say, it was a beneficial exchange. It was a mutually beneficial exchange. We can say, if you offer us a lower price, we will give you new distribution channels in exchange for this. So also, do something, give something in exchange for something else. To meet somebody halfway is to be willing to make concessions or to help the other side achieve their negotiation objectives in some way. As a result, both sides benefit. If you meet someone halfway, you do some of the things the other side is looking for. This way, you show you care about reaching an agreement and having a good relationship with them. You are not being selfish. You want them to get something out of the negotiations as well. To insist. We say we insist on something when we keep saying that we have to have it, or something must happen and we will not compromise on it. If you insist, you keep trying to convince the other side to do or give you something, or that something is true. For example, I must insist on this condition to be taken out of the contract. It is unacceptable. I really insist. Or they keep insisting on extending the deadline by a few more days. Or, sir, I've just talked to him on the phone. He insists that it was not his mistake. To solve. To solve a problem or an issue means to complete it. To take care of it well, successfully. For instance, this agreement is much too complicated. This must be solved. Or, we need to solve this matter immediately. To solve something. A solution to. A solution to a problem is a way of dealing with it successfully. Some idea or an answer to a problem or question or difficulty. For instance, the lawyers from the other side are not offering any good solutions. Our company delivers most of its products late, and I do not know the solution to this. To offer, to make an offer. We can, for instance, say, they have made a very interesting offer to us. We need to consider it carefully. Or, it's not the best offer, but let's not reject it right away. To make a counter-offer is to make a different offer in reply to an offer. The first offer is not acceptable, completely or in part, so you make a counter-offer with some of the terms and conditions changed. To object to something. It means to disagree with what somebody offers or suggests or asks for. You do not agree, so you object to it. You don't want something to happen, so you object to it. For instance, they have objected to our last proposal. Or please, Do not object before you hear my demands. Rapport. This noun means good communication with somebody. We have rapport with somebody when we understand each other, when we have a good relationship with them. We have rapport with them. We communicate well. It can be used as an uncountable noun, to have rapport, but we can also use it like this. She has an excellent rapport with her daughter. An excellent rapport. Countable. Or I have a good rapport with my colleagues.